Party keeps on rolling. So very exciting. Next up, she is an accomplished leader at the intersection of social impact and emerging technologies with a speciality in blockchain and digital asset technology. She currently acts as the advisor and commercial lead for gooddollar.org, a social innovation initiative sponsored by eToro.com that delivers global universal basic income to the world through leveraging decentralized finance protocols. Prior to moving into the blockchain and digital asset space, her background was as growth and marketing leader for enterprise technology companies in the field of big data and something that's right up my alley, artificial intelligence. She holds an MA in global political economy and business from the Fletcher School at Tufts University and a BA in philosophy from Dartmouth College. Please put your virtual hands together for the advisor and commercial lead at gooddollar.org, Anna Stone. Anna, welcome.
Thank you so much for the lovely introduction. And with that, I'm going to go to my presentation. Thank you, everyone, for joining me today. Thanks, Chris, for the lovely introduction. I'm here to talk about how the team at Good Dollar, but not only Good Dollar, many other worthwhile projects are actually planning to unlock the tools that we've done in DeFi for financial inclusion. And I'd like to take this moment to actually acknowledge some of the really great presentations that have come before me this morning, both in terms of really providing clear definitions for what DeFi is, and specifically for those of you who are in Rebecca's talk from Zirian right before me about using DeFi for Africa, that actually provided the perfect context and background for what I'm about to talk to you today. So I'm here from the Good Dollar team, and Good Dollar is one project that's thinking about how do we actually leverage the decentralized finance infrastructure to actually deliver on better financial inclusion. And specifically, we're looking at the challenge of basic income and working on a protocol that allows for us to create, distribute, and most importantly, sustainably pay for a small daily basic income to go to any human being on Earth. We are a social impact spinoff from eToro.com, which is one of Europe's most popular capital markets platform. And we're really driven by a desire to bring more and more people into what we believe will be the next significant financial asset as we look forward in the decades ahead, which is digital assets and cryptocurrencies. So really quickly, what is universal basic income? This is a long-standing idea that's been around since the 16th century that has very recently moved from, I would say, the utopian fringe of policy and economic policy into mainstream policy discussion, particularly as a result of the economic fallout that we see as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. Basic income has become really a widely discussed policy across South Africa, the United States, the EU, and it's the idea of providing everyone with a small periodic cash payment that people receive on an individual level that's unconditioned and universal regardless of employment status, behavior, social standing, etc. And while different pilots that assess the efficacy of basic income are still quite initial, every single pilot to date, of which we have over 50 that have been done, have been proven to improve the mental, emotional, and physical security of the participants in it. And so, as was mentioned in a few talks this morning, I'm going to show you a figure that shouldn't surprise many of you. Fintech and mobile penetration hasn't translated into financial inclusion. Over 1.7 billion people on this earth remain unbanked. That means they're without access to the financial services and products that are actually the pathway to a lot of safety, financial stability, security, and potential wealth creation that many of us here at this event here enjoy. And if you're like me and have been working in this space for a while, we've probably all been heard no shortage of claims about how the magic blockchain is going to suddenly solve for financial inclusion and be the be all come all in terms of solving these challenges. Now, I'm being a little bit facetious here, but actually this is with good reason, because blockchain is a meaningful and solution when it comes to challenges of access, whether it's geographical or cultural, trust and transparency regarding transactions or the value of the money supply, transaction and settlement expenses, particularly in the use case of remittances, but many others. And of course, identity, where identity remains a real challenge in dealing with populations that might be lacking government-issued ID, and such as passports and or tax records. And these are real prohibiting factors that blockchain potentially is a solution that can overcome. However, it seems like we're still in a moment where we've heard a lot of hype but have seen very little action. And those of us who are working in this space, we know in our hearts that there's relatively very few of us that actually have access to these new currencies that are built on public blockchains, and even fewer of us actually have the knowledge in terms of how to use them effectively, safely, and responsibly. But while it's easy to feel frustrated and potentially impatient, I think it's really important to remember why we're here. And for us at Good Dollar, that actually is focusing on the issue of income and equality. And the reality is that the richest 1% of people on this planet have more than twice as much wealth as the bottom 88%. And that includes those of us who are in this virtual room and event today. And the stats from the World Bank continue to show that inequality and financial instability persists for the vast majority of the global human population on Earth, which means that we actually have a huge opportunity to make impact. 80% of the population survives on less than $10 a day, 50% on less than $5, 10% living in extreme poverty on less than $2. And this means that despite maybe our impatience and frustration, there is a tremendous opportunity to make a real impact on these populations and for the so-called magic blockchain to actually deliver. And when we look at a traditional adoption curve, where we are today actually makes sense. So the technology adoption curve is a business school theory that posits that it takes 25 to 40 years for an innovation to actually be adopted and accepted into the market. And what we see here is that we actually are really quite early on in this process. Bitcoin was only invented in 2009. And on this chart, I actually begin with 2015, which is the year that Ethereum was launched and created. This is, what I'm estimating to be at best the birth date of decentralized finance. I think many of us in this conference would agree that DeFi has emerged as the killer app on Ethereum, with over $4 billion of value now currently locked in smart contracts that serve DeFi applications. And at best, we see that just now in 2020, are we actually beginning to enter into the early adopters phase of the innovation curve. Looking ahead, we see and we know from working in this space that there is a significant chasm to be overcome until we actually begin to reach the early majority or mass market of users, which we are all clamoring to get to. And so it's very clear that we're still in the early days of DeFi. But I think it's useful to analyze really where we are. And so I started my talk mentioning income inequality, and I think it's important that we take stock of where we are too in terms of the new money, right? In terms of existing Ethereum users and distribution. And what we see is that even when we account for the major exchanges and the protocol smart contracts that hold the majority of ETH, the top 10,000 holders of Ethereum still hold over 57% of the existing supply. And the median account of ETH held in one of those wallets is equivalent to well over $300,000. So this reflects that the majority of value still remains in the hand of very few and in concentrated amounts. These are the whales of ETH, or when we compare it to our conventional economy, the 1%, right? So for those of us working in this space, I think it's important to acknowledge that it's not a given that the blockchain technology alone will solve for these issues. In fact, that we are actually at risk for the same modalities of wealth inequality and lack of wealth distribution to be carried over from our conventional financial systems to the new finance and the new money that we hope to build on public blockchains. And if we don't actively challenge ourselves to design products that have inclusion, openness, and fairness as the goal, it's not going to happen by accident. Yet, there are two statistics that I'm looking at that make me really optimistic for where we are and make me believe we're on the right track. The first is that this distribution of ETH is improving year after year. So every year, more and more people hold a bigger percentage of the supply. So unlike what we see in some of the other popular highly traded cryptos, over time, we actually see ETH trickling down to reach more and more users. And I saw a statistic recently that 2 months ago, we actually reached a significant milestone, which is that their number of wallets holding at least 0.1 ETH crossed 3 million. I'll also take this opportunity to take a shout out to Lexit Sokolin's talk earlier, which provided a really clear recap of where we are in DeFi to date. So continuing then, and we think about the innovation adoption curve and the chasm, the question is then, how are we actually going to design products that focus on inclusion and impact? And this is part of Good Dollar. This is really part of our design process, is challenging ourselves to think of how do we use smart contracts as a tool that allows us to design a system that's as inclusive as possible. And I'd say we're really attacking this from two angles. The first is focused off of designing new economies that reward new types of incentives. Specifically, how do we build economies that reward circulation and distribution and self-governance in contrast to hoarding of capital and wealth? And second, it's about access. Digital and mobile connectivity is not enough. It's only a part of it. Critically, how do we actually make beautiful, useful products that are easy, intuitive, safe, and secure for the majority of people to use? And any of us who are working with the existing DeFi products today, we know that the UX UI experience is improving, but still has quite a way to go. So our focus is actually on the idea of building a trickle-up economy. And if we think, and I'll explain a little bit more about what I mean by that. So when we think back to the 80% of people on this planet who are living on less than $10 a day, the question is, how do we actually create systems that empower them to do more with money as a tool? Typically, in these economies, we see communities in recession. The people are there. They are like you and me. They have demand. The demand is actually there. They want to buy things. They want to send their children to school. They want to purchase more goods and services. The goods and services are there. There are vendors, budding entrepreneurs, and plenty of places where currency could be spent. What is missing is the money. So this is actually a challenge. The problem is actually on liquidity, if you will. So then the solution, or our theory of change, is that the goal should be to put liquidity into the hands of people, and that by doing so, we will enable these people to unlock the unrealized commerce and demand that is inherent in these economies. This is actually, there are many economists who are saying this, not just us. One of the most famous is Bernard Lietaer, who is a great inspiration to us and many others in the complementary currency space. But this is why we've built a model that enables any human who wants to actually claim good dollars every day. And this is why we believe that if we give a small amount of good dollars to the individuals that are in these populations, in these fiat cash-strapped communities, good dollar will emerge as a complementary currency that will unlock that pent-up demand and facilitate and encourage local commerce and barter. So let's get a little bit into the how of what we're doing. And so the way we think about it is in using and integrating the best of the emerging decentralized finance tools to actually deliver on a system that adheres to this theory of change, if you will. So I like to call it a DeFi salad, if you will. So we're using some of the most proven tools across this emerging ecosystem, such as stablecoins, such as the concept of staking and yield protocols, automated market makers, which allow for low market cap tokens to be instantly liquid, regardless of whether or not they're listed on major exchanges, emerging tools such as DAO for self-governance, and sidechains that actually cover the transaction costs, and thinking about how do we integrate all of these tools into one solution that delivers on our theory of change. So now everyone wants to know, of course, where does the money come from? And so as I mentioned, we're all about leveraging the smart contract ecosystem in order to deliver a global basic income to the world. So Good Dollar is actually providing the pipes that wrap around the main tools from DeFi to deliver our basic income economy. And so what we encourage is we're using proven staking and lending protocols such as Compound, Aave, and others that produce value to create and we use that value to create a reserve-backed basic income currency that can be distributed every day. It's critical to note that we're incentivizing people with capital to stake their capital to the Good Dollar ecosystem. This is because they still receive the interest payments that they're entitled to. They just receive it in a market equivalent amount of Good Dollar. This is key to us actually launching a sustainable system that provides an ongoing incentive to supporters to stake more money towards the system. And this is how we plan to have a system that scales and grows over time. That was a really fast explanation that touches on lots of different elements. So if you're interested to learn more, we have a video that recaps this on our YouTube. Our white paper's coming out in a few weeks. And of course, feel free to come to me with questions. The second question is the question of access. And how do you actually reach as many people as possible in an easy way in an easy way? So what we've done is designed a simple digital wallet that is very much focused on access and reaching those target populations that I mentioned before. First of all, social login, no private key. You can create an account with any Facebook, Google account, etc. Second, dealing with the question of identity. One human, one basic income account. And the way that we do this is done via an anonymous Face ID system, where the way you claim your income is you show your face and prove that you're a live, unique human being. Really critically, this is important because it means that one smartphone can actually serve thousands of users. So when we think of these communities that might be living under $5 a day, we can't take for granted smartphone connectivity. And this is a way that we bridge this gap and enable more users to access Good Dollars. And ultimately, I believe that this will create one of the easiest onboardings into digital assets yet. I mean, I even have my parents signed up and using this. So we're really excited for the potential of what this can do and the number of people we can reach. This is how we're thinking of building our basic income economy that serves billions of people, that's based off of leveraging DeFi tools. On the claimer side, we believe that we're providing an on-ramp into digital assets for those who need it, where Good Dollar will act as a useful complementary currency to conduct commerce and barter. And for those who want to support bottom-up economies, we're providing a market incentivized solution for those with capital to actually do good and do well while doing good with their crypto. Ultimately, I think the stake for good models, like the one we outlined here today, is the potential to transform impact as an industry for individuals and corporations on a large scale in use cases that we haven't even imagined yet. So what's next? We're about to launch our smart contracts. Soon after that, we'll be announcing our first major corporate staking partner who will be staking for good to kickstart the good dollar economy. In the app, we will continue to add more features and functionalities to facilitate peer-to-peer commerce. And of course, we're always looking for vendor partnerships for where more and more places for people to use their good dollars, specifically in the field of telecom and health. And if that sounds interesting and you want to learn more, of course, come to me. With that, thank you very much.
So one of the questions we had was if someone doesn't have access to a smartphone, what's the options?
So first of all, it's a web app. So if you have any access to an internet connection at all through an internet cafe, you can also log in and claim that way. And second of all, we're also working actively to build out the USSD version of this that would allow for non-smartphone users to be able to participate as well.
Okay. And then thank you for that. Appreciate that. And then I think it's more common than anything else from Spheros. So if someone's broke, they cannot really participate.
So I think, if someone is fully broke with no access to anything, then yes, you're right. They will be left out of the system. I would posit to say that, our initial target is really focused off of the 1 billion users that are mobile and internet connected, but still are unbanked, if you will. So that's actually the target that we're going for initially. And as I mentioned before, we're just getting started. We're just launching. So we have a long roadmap in terms of how we reach more and more people that are, I would say, at lower and lower income levels, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for that.
Sure.
So we'll just cut this here, but thank you, everybody. It's been fantastic. Thank you, Anna. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
See you guys after the break.